Sitting down here with Representative-elect Lori Chavez-DeRemer. Thank you for taking the time. First and foremost, just want to ask you, it's been a long way from you being the mayor of Happy Valley to the U.S. Capitol. So how has this week been for you, just getting acquainted to life in D.C.?
Well, exciting and informative. The onboarding process is complex for most. I've been to D.C. several times as mayor. I would come out for the U.S. Conference of Mayors and National League of Cities, but certainly not in this capacity. So it's exciting time to meet all of our, fellow congressional class. We're doing elections, doing all the exciting stuff, kind of getting to know the senior members and just trying to understand the process. So it's been good. Being a mayor was great, and that's really where my love is for that local politics. But I think this is going to be good to have that focus to talk to communities directly and understand exactly the policies that come out of Washington, D.C., how they affect local communities like a city of Happy Valley.
Is there anything that's stuck out to you as far as your favorite thing you've been experiencing so far?
Well, certainly the Library of Congress has always been one of my favorite buildings, and we were there last night for an event, and again, just the history itself and really learning the ins and outs of the Capitol. While I've been several times, it's nice to visit with the historians, which Leader McCarthy brought in for a dinner. So it was kind of nice to hear just the perspective of what everyday Americans don't know about DC and the history of our country. So that's exciting for me.
Now, Oregon has 2 Republican members of Congress for the first time since 1994. What do you think that tells us about the state and your district, and how will you represent them?
Yes, I'm joining Congressman Cliff Bentz. We've become good friends over several years. I did know him from the State House as well as mayor when I would go visit. But in this capacity, I think it's going to be good for balance. Oregon has often been a little lopsided in their leadership. Where we had 4 and 1, now we're going to have 4 and 2 with the new seat. So I think it's going to bring balance. And I think what it tells us about the constituency and how the voters reacted to what's happening in our country and in our state is they were looking for some change and some pragmatic, thoughtful leadership. And I think my proven track record, again, being a mayor, being an 18-year business owner, being a mom, people were looking for what that means to bring to Washington. Will we listen to them when we go home? And I will tell you, with that track record being a mayor, I want to go right back home and tell them exactly what we're doing here. So I think it's going to bring a balance. And I'll work with the other congressmen and women throughout the state of Oregon to do some bipartisan work, because that's what people are looking for, government that works for them.
So we should expect some bipartisan efforts out of you. What else can the people back in your district expect?
Well, I'm going to work hard. That's what I promised on the trail for 16 months was, working hard. Nobody's going to outwork me at this job, because I think the people deserve that. Integrity, authenticity, hard work, and bipartisanship. I mean, that's what Oregon's 5th District represents. I think that's what Oregon represents. So they're looking for, again, the government that works for them, and then telling them the story about how it works back here and what we can do for them right at home. And I'll be visiting the district every week for the next 2 years to make sure that I understand and I'm listening to them correctly, and so that I can bring their story here.
A lot of travel between the East and West Coast. History was also made because now Oregon has its first 2 Hispanic members of Congress, with you and Rep-elect Salinas. So is that important to you, knowing that you're blazing a trail for Hispanics, and how do you think being a Latino will influence your role in Congress?
Yeah, so I visited with Congresswoman-elect Salinas. We visited in the halls, and I hadn't really had time to spend with her, but I do think it's an important distinction. It's one of the fastest growing populations in Oregon. While it's just a little over 10% of Oregonians' mind and population, it's the fastest growing. And listening to the needs and wants of all different backgrounds is important. So yes, as the first Hispanic woman elected to Congress in Oregon, I think that's a good check mark to have. And now we go back and we talk to them and say, what are your values? And usually they're the same. Faith, family, freedom, hard work, law and order. Those are the values that the Hispanic population looks for, and I want to be that reflection for them. So I'm excited for that.
Now, you're coming into a Congress where there are a lot of long-standing members on both sides, but who do you admire in Congress right now? Maybe someone you thought as a role model?
Well, for sure, I want to recognize Congressman Walden. While he's not in Congress anymore, he certainly has been a pillar, not only here in Washington, D.C. as a leadership role, but also for Oregonians. And he's still back here. I mean, I was just with him again yesterday. at Main Street. Main Street Caucus is going to be important because I think that that's the bipartisan, Republican Main Street, but working across the aisle. That's the focus, about getting stuff done about what applies to Main Street. So I want to recognize that. I certainly will follow the lead of Congressman Cliff Bentz as well. He's got such a detailed policy mind as far as water and natural resources, and I want to make sure that I can stay focused. But there are so many women in Congress who are now blazing that trail, right? We're seeing more and more GOP women come to Washington, and I think that we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So I'm starting to get to know a lot of the other members, but I look forward to meeting everybody.
Now, obviously, you come in as Republicans have retaken the House, something that was expected. A little bit on a larger scale it was expected, but nonetheless, Republicans have retaken the House. Who do you support to be the next Speaker?
Oh, well, Leader McCarthy, for sure. I mean, he really, and I say this, and I said it throughout the time, he worked hard to open that tent of the Republican Party. And I thought that that was important. Not only did they talk the talk, they walked the walk. And they were out in full force in our districts, making sure that we were elected, helping us out. And so I think that what we saw in the leadership votes, that he is solid footing, and we're working together as a conference to make sure that he becomes our next Speaker.
Now, one of the things we literally just heard this morning as some of the priorities of a House Republican majority are some of these wide-scale investigations that have already been launched or about to be launched. This morning there was talk about Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden, the Biden family and their business dealings. Is this something you're in favor of?
Well, that's one of the, the basic forms of government right here for Congress is oversight and, understanding. But I think there has to be a there. And I think that that's probably what we're looking to do. Again, as a new member of Congress, we're just trying to figure all this stuff out. There hasn't been much talk of that over there. We've just been orienting ourselves on the hallways and figuring it out. But I think the American people are going to say, is there a there? Can we investigate it? It is one of the committees, as we know. That's not a committee I would probably look for, but we'll keep our eyes and ears open about what's going to happen.
Now, as we're not even done with the 2022 midterms, there's already focus now shifting to the 2024 presidential election. This is the first time you and I are speaking, so forgive some of the ignorance, but did you support the former president in 2016 and 2020 as in Donald Trump?
Of course, because he was the nominee, right? So as we came forward to support the nominee, I think in 2024, again, what are we, 700 days away from that election? And again, getting our footing right here in Washington, D.C., I think is going to be important. I think as a conference, we need to decide what is the message. We had good messaging in Oregon about what the people wanted. They wanted safe streets. They wanted to make sure that the everyday living is affordable. That's what people were asking for. Pay attention to what's happening to them on the ground. I think the tent's going to get wider for 2024, and we're going to have to wait and see.
Did you watch this?
I didn't watch his speech. I'm not sure we've had time to watch much of anything. We have been going morning and night. Our days are starting at about 6:30 in the morning, and we're finishing up, 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night. So I didn't watch his speech.
How did you think his presidency ended in 2020?
Well, President Biden won the election, and then it's seemed to have gone quiet, and then we were on the trail. So, we're going to see a wider tent. We don't even know all the names of possible nominees in the Republican Party, and I will support the Republican nominee, whoever that is.
Even if it is the former president?
I will support the Republican nominee for sure.
Just to put a bow on this whole thing, you're now going to be serving your first term in Congress. It's very exciting. For those that don't know you, what is your main message to the people back home?
Well, again, as a mom of twin girls that are now 28 years old making their way in the world, as an 18-year business owner, as a former mayor, understanding what Oregon's 5th District was asking, and again, that was paying attention to the issues, making sure that we, don't come back here and forget about where we came from, and I think that that's what's important. The new Republican woman, the new Republican Congresswoman, go back, pay attention, and that's what women do. We make lots of decisions in our families, we make lots of decisions out in our communities, and it's time to bring that message here. So I'm looking forward to representing all of Oregon, and it's going to be an exciting time.
Representative-elect Lori Chavez-DeRemer.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.